So for many years, Michigan viewed itself in a light that was different from other places, right?
I'll say it. The most holier than thou fan base in America.
Okay, you can say
even more so than Notre Dame?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because they're cynical and holier than thou. Michigan wasn't even cynical about it.
Fair enough.
But the thing that I think is interesting is now that they're playing the game the way that everybody else has played it, have you seen a fundamental shift in how fans react to you, your work, the team? Have they accepted that? And like, what has it been like kind of covering the team as it's gone through an evolution of like Kickstarters doing things the right way to like part of the evil empire?
It's a great question. And the old guard and guys my age and above hate it. Right? They're like, wait, this isn't college football. A scholarship it should be enough, and the meal card and the meal tokens that you get for local restaurants. Whereas the younger people are like, it's about time, right? It's about time that we did this. And we got caught up and started playing that game because they think that the SEC's been playing it for years, right? Legally or illegally. They've been saying that forever. But they also understand that if you're going to compete, this is the way to do it now. We've seen what has happened when Michigan hasn't spent money. They were losing recruits to Kentucky and Louisville in schools that they had owned over the years when it came to recruiting. And then all of a sudden, when they get the money, they're starting to compete. And they said, okay, we're not going to get beat for Bryce Underwood. And they just kept coming back and saying, what's it going to take to get you here? When Bryce Underwood had absolutely no interest in Michigan at one point because they weren't playing the game. So if you want to be relevant, and I think the vast majority of the fan base understands this now, if you want to be relevant, then this is what you're going to have to do. And since it's a level playing field, I don't think there's that much of a complaint when it comes to, okay, everybody has the opportunity to do this. Now, not everybody has the boosters, right, or the money or the interest that maybe a Michigan does. Even though before Larry Ellison, it was really, really hard for Michigan to raise some money here. So, but when I say level playing field, I mean the rules are the same for everybody. And as long as that's the case, I think Michigan fans are going to be happy because more than anything, as you guys know, it's about winning and winning in that national championship, and how much they enjoyed that and how much they enjoyed that season pretty much trumps everything.
Yeah, I think that the taste of that national championship kind of is like, well, that was fun. Why don't we do that again? Because I do remember, like, I've written plenty of columns that have in my life that have enraged Michigan fans, but even before they won the national championship 2 years ago, I would scream from the mountaintops, the Ohio State rivalry doesn't have to be this way. Michigan's got everything you need to be successful. They could win a national championship, and everyone's just like, no, we do it this way. This is the way we're doing it. And then it's like, now they're doing it the way that I said they should have done it in 2016. It's like, why didn't they do it in 2010?
Right.
They could have done it in 2010.
Well, they could have. At the same time, there are other, and I hate to say this, Michigan's under the NCAA microscope, right? But there are areas where Michigan wouldn't go that other schools would. At least that was their complaint, right? That we aren't going to do this and we don't want to cheat, and these other schools must be cheating. And then, you'd hear about these schools, the cars and everything else. Not that Michigan was holier than thou, and I hate to say it, but you're absolutely right, Andy, about that. So I don't know. I just think it's different now because with all the rulings, the court rulings and everything else that made NIL legal, then now Michigan fans can say, okay, now we can do it this way, and we don't have to worry about the NCAA coming down on us or breaking any rules, things like that. And, the things that Michigan, the older guard, really values here. So that's, I think, the biggest difference. So, but now going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Again, with the House settlement ruling coming up, and because right now it doesn't seem like Michigan's paying as much on the NIL for whatever reason. Maybe they're just waiting to get the NCAA stuff behind them, but they're not recruiting as well either. So it's fascinating how everything seems to change within several month periods here as to what you can and can't do and where your program is headed.
So I full disclosure, we're recording this Thursday, the day before Michigan's hearing with the NCAA Committee on Infractions. So if Connor Stallions got up on a table and did the twist during the hearing, we don't know that yet. So we'll talk plenty about that as time goes on, I'm sure. But I do want to kind of focus on what's coming up this season. And I think Bryce Underwood is a great place to start because that's the first person anybody's going to ask about. Because you mentioned maybe they're not spending as much, but they did spend to get him. And it seemed like the plan was, okay, they bring in Chip Lindsey as the OC, At the same time, they bring in Mikey Keene, who had played for Lindsey at UCF and then gone on to Fresno State and had a good, successful career there. Keene gets hurt before spring practice. Is Underwood going to be the guy? I mean, does he really have no choice but to be the guy at this point?
I don't think he has no choice because I think Mikey Keene is starting to heal up. I talked to Chip Lindsey today, as a matter of fact, the offensive coordinator, and he said he's back healthy. He's throwing a little bit, and he had an upper body injury that really limited him. So I suppose he could come out of nowhere and all of a sudden pick up the offense, having worked with Chip Lindsey before and just wowing everybody to the point where, okay, he's the guy. But Bryce Underwood, from practice 1 to practice 15, and what he brings to the table in terms of physical skills is like nothing anybody's ever seen here before. And we've seen Drew Henson here as a true freshman. Chad Henne started here as a true freshman. They say, people who've been here for 35, 40 years say he is by far the best freshman quarterback, true freshman that they've seen here. So now part of it's going to be the people around him, right? And the receiving core, there are still some question marks there. The offensive line, there are question marks there. So you can't put him in harm's way. And I keep telling people about Devin Gardner, for example, back in 2013 and the beating he took. He should have been a better quarterback here, but he didn't have the pieces, right? So I do think that Underwood will be the guy. I think that Mikey Keene will be pushing him. Jaden Davis is a distant third. But as when I asked somebody specifically, I said, all right, off the record, who's your quarterback this year? And he said, follow the money. And that means Bryce Underwood.
Yeah. Just a off question that has nothing to do with this season, but I've just been genuinely curious. What's been the deal with Jaden Davis? Because he was a big time guy that people were excited about. And I just feel like he hasn't even been in the discussion at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's smaller, number one. If he's 5'10", I think that's generous, to be honest with you. Winds up to throw, and I don't want to rip on the kid, right? But I think he was a little bit overrated coming out of high school, and a lot of his passes were, okay, receiver gets the ball, 10-yard hitch or something and takes it the distance. So I think he's solid, but there were a lot of people who were not sold on him as a quarterback who could play at this level. And so you can see from the pictures in front of us. I know that some people are listening, but the windup, it takes a long time for the ball to come out of his hands. So, but he's picked up the offense. He's gotten a lot better. There were people calling for him last year, Michigan fans calling for him. And we'd heard in practice, man, he's not even close. And I still think he's got a long way to go. I think there's no question he'll be third on the depth chart. And you know what that means in this day and age, guys, when it comes to transfers and things like that, we'll always keep an eye on it. But to me, I think it was a matter of too high expectations early on.
So we talked about the receivers because this offense was non-functional from a passing standpoint last year. And it's more than just Bryce Underwood. Now, obviously, they had Colson Loveland at first-round tight end on this offense last year. But how do they get guys ready for Bryce Underwood to deliver them the ball? Because I'm not worried about them running the ball. I know what Michigan is. You look at Chip Lindsey's history as an OC. He's a very run-first OC when he's coaching with Gus Malzahn or Mac Brown. And so I'm guessing heavy sets, 60% running the ball, 58% running the ball. But how do they have a functional passing game that allows them to keep the defenses honest?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I asked him that today too. And I said, what does balance mean to you? Is it 50-50? Is it 55-45? He says it really depends on, how teams play you, obviously, and your personnel. And he fully acknowledges that the receiving room is not Ohio State, for example. Frankly, it wasn't Indiana last year. And so you've got a Donovan McCulley coming over from Indiana who essentially got passed up last year. He still has the skills. He's been a great addition to the room, but he's your number one guy, and you can't really say that he's proven, right? Guys behind him.
He got passed up by Elijah Surratt and the group that they brought in.
Right, exactly. And so, was it he just didn't fit with the new regime? What is it? Because we'd seen him do some really good things in the Big Ten the year before, I think 635, 700 yards. So, but all of a sudden, that's your number one receiver here. And at a place like Michigan, and you hate to say it, but, I'm going back to the past because, they haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver in quite a while now. And they generally don't anymore. When Jim Harbaugh got here, we all know what Jim Harbaugh likes to do, right? So, but, you know, when I go back to the Braylon Edwards days and the Edwards Avant and Steve Preston and guys like that, Michigan should be better and should never have a problem landing top receivers. At the same time, if you're a run-first team, as Roman Wilson said last year, he said, it is what it is. We understand we're going to be blocking a lot. You know, it's almost like the Bo Schembechler days. So it's hard to secure that talent. So you have to get some of the guys that are coming in under the radar. Fred Moore is a guy that will have to step up. And he had a really nice Reliaquest Bowl. Was really impressed with him. He's kind of the deep threat. Samaj Morgan kind of is who he is. So they're hoping that some of these freshmen will step up too. But at the same time, you know, freshman receivers at Michigan are 400-yard guys if they're really, really good. Even the Mario Manninghams back in the day, right? So there are question marks there. They're going to have to rely on some of the tight ends again. And really, Colston Loveland bailed them out the last couple of years. So, but they've got to get some more talent there. I really thought that they would go to the spring portal to land somebody. They said that guys were just too high priced at that point, and that kind of priced them out of the conversation. Same with the offensive tackles. I said they needed a left tackle, and now it looks like they may be starting a true freshman in Andrew Babalola, if not Evan Link, who was really struggling on the right side. So that's the hand that Bryce Underwood or Mikey Keene has been dealt. It'll be very interesting to see how Chip Lindsey gets them involved, because what he told me, he said, we're going to get the ball to our explosive players. And I'm thinking, okay, who are they? You know?
Yeah. We've seen the Samaj Morgan in and around. We know he's pretty fast against certain teams, but against Ohio State, it's a little bit tougher.
Right.
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of people out there that have a notion that Michigan is going to be a playoff contender here, and your tone doesn't strike me as gung ho right now.
I would say that defensively, if you had Bryce Underwood last year, or who had improved, say Bryce Underwood played really well, or you had a quarterback that played really well, then let's be honest, Michigan could have been right there in the conversation, the playoff conversation, having beaten Ohio State and Alabama because of their defense. And I think the defense is going to carry this team again. I don't think there's any question about it. I think the run game, I think they feel very comfortable with it and confident that they're going to be good again. With Justice Haynes and with Jordan Marshall, I think they believe that there are different things they can do. And with a more dynamic offense and with an offensive coordinator who has done it and has proven that he can make the most of his players' talents, that they're going to be able to move the ball well enough. Wink Martindale has said, Michigan's defensive coordinator, he thinks this defense could be even better than last year's, which after losing Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, they still have outstanding talent in the front seven. They've got hopefully Rod Moore coming back at safety. He's just started to run, but that's why I think they feel confident about it. They got an outstanding kicking game, obviously with Dominic Zapata, and they believe that Bryce Underwood is going to be able to do a lot of things at the quarterback position by middle of the year, where he's going to elevate that entire group. But they've got to find some guys who can catch the ball, and they've got to be better up front.
So watching that Reliaquest Bowl, which was Alabama at basically full strength against a Michigan team that was not the full strength version of the 2024 Michigan team, but a good representation of the 2025 Michigan defense, where you had TJ Guy and Rayshon Benny and Derek Moore. You know, that gave me confidence. Like, okay, they might not drop off a bit from that group last year.
Yeah, and that's what they love. They love the front seven. They got Trey Williams from Clemson, who's really played well. Rayshon Benny has been one of those guys that's been right there with Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Hasn't really had as much time to play because he's been behind those guys, but might just be a hair behind them. They love him as an anchor up front. They think they're going to stop the run. It's really going to come down to what they do on the back end. Can they count on those young cornerbacks? They wanted to go to the portal for a cornerback this year. Some guys still need to mature back there, and they really wanted one more. So even though Zeke Berry moved over from safety and played very well in his last few games there. So, but they really feel good about these guys. And that was really kind of the test, right? We thought, okay, Alabama's going to run on these guys. They're going to move the ball on these guys. And that front seven and what Derek Moore did, especially in that game, and TJ Guy, really got you thinking that, okay, maybe it's not going to be a huge step back when we lose Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, as the Michigan coaches were thinking. So they played extremely well. And of course, they're well coached too. Wink Martindale, I think it took him a while to settle in, fellas, and to really adapt to coaching college kids again. And once he did, and they started buying in and listening, then they really got better. So I think that's going to be the key to this season on defense as well, that and the secondary. But to me, again, it comes back down to that offense and what they can do at receiver and offensive line.